So we're going to start a new sugya this week and a bit bigger. Okay, well, Michael Werner, you came. You came last. You can start to read first. We're going to start from here. Ubara shehiricha.
From smell to smell.
So right now my eyes are a bit blurry because I've been staring at the computer all day.
Oh,
So actually, I can get my glasses if I have them here. And if not,
okay.
I'll ask you to enlarge the.
Yeah, we can make it larger because I don't need to show Rashi right
Oh,
away.
very good. Okay. Nope.
Hold on.
Nope. Uvra shayarecha me'achalim ota ad shetashiv nafsha. Ochole me'achalin oto al pi shekiyin
Biki. Alpi.
al pi vekiyin
Mm-hmm.
ואם אין שם בקיאים. מאכילים אותו על פי עצמו עד שיאמר די.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's go back. So can you translate this? Ubara shihiricha. We learned this Mishnah when we learned the
Yes,
Mishnah.
yeah. So a pregnant woman who smells, who is sensitive to smell.
No. Who smells? Don't add in more than what's there.
Okay. A pregnant woman who smells. We give her food. We feed her until her spirit is settled.
Okay.
And someone who is sick, we feed him alpi, and I don't know that other word.
Bikiyin.
Bikiin, yes. So I just don't know what that means.
Okay. Anybody? Bikiyin?
It means like an expert, being able to distinguish.
Baki. It's like baki.
No, it's baki in baki. Bikiyin are experts, like Michael Schwartz said.
Okay.
Feed her according to experts.
And if there are not experts there, we feed him according to his own judgment, according to what he says, until he says enough.
Okay, so without adding in any words, what does it say? Al pi atzmo.
According to his own mouth.
Yeah, or according to himself.
According to himself, yeah.
According to himself. Okay, until he says enough. Right. Don't elaborate. Don't elaborate on what's there. Just say what's there.
Okay.
If we need to interpret it, then we'll interpret it to, maybe sometimes we're missing things, but be really careful when you're doing this kind of translation. Don't say more than what the text says. Okay. So, a pregnant woman who smelled. So what's our question here? What is missing? Ubara shehiricha.
What does she smell?
What did she smell? It doesn't say what she smelled. So what would you think?
Food.
So presumably it means that she smelled food. So she smelled food, and then what? So what what is this? So we feed her until her. How did you put it, Michael? You put it well. Her soul was put to rest
Until her spirit is settled.
until her spirit is settled. That's a very good. That is a very good translation. Until her spirit is settled. So she smelled. So we're going to say a woman who smelled food. We feed her until her spirit is settled. So presumably there's also something else missing here. Why are we feeding her?
I mean, I can only.
She's probably hungry and very hungry, something like this.
Okay,
She feels faint. She's fainting, but why should? What has this got to do with the smell? Maybe yes. I
So
don't.
I'm guessing, based on what we've learned so far, that there's some question of sakana here.
okay. Um,
Also from the context, from what follows.
well, so here, Ad shetashiv nafsha, until her spirit is settled. So presumably she smelled food, and then what happened to her?
She got agitated.
Yeah, she got unsettled, right? In other words, if the point is to make Ad shetashiv nafsha, so presumably after she smelled the food, she didn't have Meshivat Nefesh. So for her, we feed her Ad Shetashiv Nafsha. And Michael Werner added in, so you're adding in what would be the halachic premise? What's the basis for feeding her? So presumably there's some kind of danger. Now, what kind of danger do we associate with? What kind of physical danger do we associate with a pregnant woman?
Miscarriage, for one.
Okay, so in other words, we're concerned. I'll put it a different way. We're concerned for her health and well-being, and the health and well-being
And the health and well-being of the fetus.
of the fetus.
As they say, she's eating for two.
Yeah. So yeah. Um, there was a Joan Rivers joke where she said, when I was pregnant, everybody told me I'm eating for two, so I always wanted to know, who are these two people and why can't they eat for themselves? Anyway, so okay, so that's the din of a woman who's pregnant. This form of ubara is distinct. Usually we say me'uberet, and we'll see Rashi on this. But we're going to just take it for the moment just to mean that she's pregnant. There's a woman who has within her an ubar, a woman who has a fetus in her. So if she smells food and becomes unsettled somehow, right? And then we're worried for her health and or for the health of her fetus, then we feed her until her spirit is settled. Okay. So this is already in contrast, or in other words, I'll put it this way, this fits in to what we learned already about eating on Yom Kippur. What's the shear for eating on Yom Kippur?
I mean, it is.
It's
Well, I mean,
not clear if she's.
Go
It's
ahead.
not clear if she's eating normally or if she's eating לפי שיעורים. No, nobody, it's not,
No. It doesn't say anything about eating
it
according
doesn't
to
say,
shiurim.
yes.
No. So what's the shiur for which you're chayav eating on Yom Kippur?
So basically, you're chayav if you achieve yeshuv hadat. And
Okay.
then,
What's the shiur for eating on Yom Kippur?
um, it is. Oh, it's
Okay.
it's like a lugma, a fat date. Like I forget the interval, but it's
No. Forget the interval. If you eat the size, the shiur for which you're chayav for eating on Yom Kippur is kakotevet hagasa, like the size of a fat date. So we pointed out when we learned that the shiur for the Isur of eating on Yom Kippur is different than every other Isur in the Torah. Every other Isur in the Torah, what's the shiur that you're chayav for eating?
A kazite.
ביצה,
A kazayat. A kazayat.
right.
Kazayat. If you eat a kazayat of, like of bacon or tray food of any kind, then you're chayav. And for Yom Kippur, the shiur is kekotevet hagasa. So why is it kekotevet hagasa, Michael Werner? Why is it kekotevet hagasa?
because that is the amount that gives yeshuv hadat.
Yeah. So we have a similar term here of tashiv nafsha. So what we're saying is that she's going to eat until she feels well. In other words, until she feels like her spirit is settled, and presumably she doesn't have to eat more anymore. So we'll come back to that. So that's the story of the Ubara Shehiricha. What about the Chole? Person who is sick, Machilino Ta'abikin. So why are we feeding the sick person?
Presumably because there's some sakana. We don't.
Again, yeah, so again, in other words, presumably this person is sick and they're sick from either from not eating or they're sick and eating is going to, to help relieve them. So, machilino to pi bikin, we feed him according to experts. So, who are these experts, and what are we looking to them to tell us?
Doctors.
What kind of experts do we need here?
Medical
Doctors.
Yeah, doctors, medical experts. So these are people who are going to tell us how why are we turning to the expert? What are they going to tell us?
That the person is in serious danger if they don't eat.
They don't eat, and what else will they be able to tell us?
what amount is needed to alleviate the danger?
So presumably they'll be able to tell us a couple of things. One is how much to feed them, and also what else.
If you have to feed him, maybe
If you have to,
maybe
right.
the person isn't that
Isn't that sick?
sick, yeah.
So
And also presumably what kind of food?
very good. So all of those things, right? In other words, we'll go like this. Al pi b'kiyin, we'll feed him according to experts, meaning they're going to turn to an expert to see first of all if they need to eat, or will they be okay if they don't eat, and second, what kind of food should they now be eating? And then once we know that, then maybe we'll also not want to know from them how much food they'll need to eat. So that would be the experts. But if there are no experts there, then what do we do? Ma'achilinoto al pi atzmo ad shiomar dai. So what does that mean?
We listen to the sick person. We feed the sick person according to what he says until he says enough.
Okay. In other words, so we're going to look to him and say, what do you need? And he'll say, and then we're going to feed him that, and presumably we'll feed him as much as he needs until he says it's enough. So what's the difference in the conclusion between the ubara shehiricha and the chole?
The ubara, ubara, so we immediately give her whatever. Basically, I think however much is needed immediately, so that her spirit settles.
Until her spirit settles, and for the chole,
we the default is to actually rely on an outside medical opinion, and only if that opinion is not available do we listen to what the sick person says.
and and until when? In other words, they eat until when?
Until he says it's enough.
So he says it's enough. So it's not the same as the ubara shehiricha.
No, I wasn't suggesting. No.
No, I'm not saying you were suggesting. I'm trying to point out what you missed.
Mm-hmm.
What you missed, this is the conclusion is different. Ad shetashiv nafsha, nad shiomar dai. So those presumably aren't the same thing. So we don't know what the difference between them is. What's the difference between saying ad shetashiv nafsha and ad shiomar dai? And also, if the ubara is like a chole, which we've discussed elsewhere, so why don't we just have one din for a chole, and the ubara would just be under that same din? The ubara seems to be a special category, right? Once we say that somebody's in danger for not eating, then why don't we just have one rule for for everybody? So these are questions that we need to explore.
But Shel,
Mm-hmm.
why do you use why does the text use machilin? Usually the person herself decides. Then it's not all the other people are in the Bet Knesset, and the person is at home. It doesn't feel well.
It's a good question. So I'm sorry, and in fact I missed that. So right, because it could have said ubara shehiricha ocheret ad shetashiv nafsha. She, right, in other words, certainly, right, we're not talking about an infant here. She's a pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
So she's
the same for the sick person.
And the same thing for the sick person. So why?
Maybe there's somebody with him, but doesn't have to be that way.
So what do we get from saying? What do we add in by saying ma'achilin?
So basic. I'm guessing that it's okay to prepare food for them.
Oh, so in other words, there may also be this may also bring in this idea. Maybe these are people who are not able to feed themselves,
or might involve shechting an animal.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to such cases.
Or it's an injunction to a Rav, to a person which should decide.
Yafeh. Machilinota could also mean, yes, that we, the rabbis,
Mhm.
say, in other words, we're giving our sanction for them to eat. Also very good. Good point. Okay. Where else did we see this idea of ma'achilin, that we prepare food for somebody?
or minor.
For a minor, for children, ma'achilin.
Yes, but that's understandable because maybe
It's
the
more
parents, yes,
understandable.
yeah,
Right. So there it's more understandable, especially because when you're talking about, you know, based on what we learned in the last couple of weeks. So let's say children up to the age of 8 or 9, we're talking about from birth till 8 or 9, we're talking about very young children. So certainly infants need to be fed. And at a certain point, maybe they can feed themselves. And that gets into this discussion about, do we actively feed them or we just don't prevent them from eating? We leave food out for them. If they want to eat, they can eat. So that was part of the last sugya. So, but here, it's a good question. Why do we say ma'achilin? So I think we could include both this idea, ma'achilin means that we give halachic sanction to them, and it could also include the idea that maybe these are people who have to have food prepared for them. So in the case of ubara shehiri, so what's distinct though about this case of ubara shehiricha from a general chole? Just
There
based
are,
on the words, just based on the
we're-
words here.
I mean, we're with the ubara, we're concerned both about the woman and the fetus.
Okay, so that's definitely true, but I'm talking about just let's contrast their cases. Ubara shehiricha. It doesn't say chole shehiriach. What's the difference in those cases? Ubara shehiricha.
In the case that the ubara sheharicha, I mean the measure is agitation, whereas with the hole, the measure is not specified.
Well, okay. I mean,
Or
first of all, that's true.
not agitation, but it's a very specific case, like a woman who smells food.
Oh, very good. Let's just, well, in other words, let's keep it to the basic thing. What you said isn't wrong,
I mean,
because what we
it also seemed to follow by how these two lines conclude.
so
Nafsha, we'd assume that her nafsha that the nafsha is not settled.
the nefesh, right?
The
So,
nefesh.
but
Yeah.
the point is, so what we're saying is, we don't say that the pregnant woman got sick. That we're saying it's the pregnant woman apparently is distinct from from other people, including other sick people, because with a pregnant woman, it's enough for her to smell the food and thereby want to eat. Whereas for you and me, if we smell food and we want to eat, that's not going to trigger this halachic question of whether or not you should feed us. For the choleh, as we said earlier, the choleh, it's also not based on the fact that they smelled food. The choleh is based on their general health profile right now. What's happening to them right now? Are they sick to the point where food is something that they need to be better? So there's something particular about a pregnant woman who smells food that's distinct really from anybody else. That it can trigger this this halachic question.
Right. It's also a pregnant. Not each pregnant woman should eat. But if you read only a pregnant woman who smells
who
food.
smells food.
Yeah.
Right. It
Chol-
doesn't.
and
Right. Right.
if you are, and the chole is every chole.
So right. So for the so what it tells you is right. A pregnant woman stam has to fast. L'chatchila, she has to fast.
Mhm.
Right. You're right to say there isn't an automatic dispensation for pregnant women that they don't have to fast. They do have to fast. But the exceptions for them eating, there's at least one exception that's given to them that we don't necessarily give to anybody else. And with with her, like Michael Werner said, Ad shetashiv nafsha. So until her spirit is settled, in other words, we're concerned about whatever this means exactly. Shetashiv nafsha. We don't feed her until she says enough. We feed her until she's settled. So that may have to do with some concept about what we think is uh, uh, the well-being of a pregnant woman and the well-being of her fetus. There's something about Meshivat Nefesh that maybe applies to her and her unborn child. So you know what? Let's take a look at Rashi here. So Michael Schwartz, Ubara Shehiricha.
Uberasha haricha, ha'uver mariach reach tavshil, uhu mitaveh lo ve'im eno ochelet shteyem misukanim.
Okay, so what does that mean? Ha'ubar meiriach reach tavshil.
It's not, uvar is the fetus, not the pregnant woman. So
Yeah.
the fetus smells
Yeah.
the cooking, and he becomes gains an appetite because of it. And if he doesn't eat, then both of them will be in danger, both the fetus and the mother.
See, so Rashi, Rashi is playing up on the fact that the woman, well, I had a diyun with myself about this. Does Rashi think that ubara means a fetus, the fetus who smells, or that
I think so.
or it seems like that. Ubar meiriach reach. Or it could also mean ubara, that the reason that the Mishnah uses the term ubara instead of miuberet, I have to add in a little something here to say maybe what it means is that she's called an ubara because we say that her smell is also connected to the sense of smell of the fetus. But in any event, one could say this is how Rashi understands it. That Rashi understands it. In other words, so this also tells us that the pregnant woman, of course, is distinct from everybody else because she has another person inside of her, and this person has a kind of will of their own. It's just that she happens to be the package that's holding this other person. So the other person that's inside of her smells something and desires it. And if she if she doesn't eat, then they're both in danger. So there was this idea.
How does she know? How does she know?
That, well, in other words, she knows.
She's talking to the ubar.
Well, since none of us have ever
He
been
speaks Hebrew.
Since none of
I
us
mean,
have ever been pregnant, I'm not going to say.
This is though sort of an appropriate verse to be studying, in the context of this week's parsha, or the opening of this week's parsha.
Yeah, you could say. Yeah, absolutely. In other words, well, you know, what you get from this week's Parsha is an idea that a woman is acutely aware of the fetus or fetuses that are inside of her in a way that only she can be aware, right? We can't be aware. Only she can feel that. So presumably she's the one who actually smells what the smell is, but the reason that she has this great desire to eat is connected. There's an idea that maybe this is connected to her fetus, that the fetus needs her to eat whatever it is that she's smelling in order to, to maintain their well-being, in order not to be put into danger. So this is what makes the pregnant woman different than any other kind of choleh. She's not, this is the point. The pregnant woman isn't sick. She's pregnant. And that is its own category. It's a separate category. It will overlap with the category of the choleh. But she herself, it's not that she's sick, she's in this state of pregnancy. And this is what could happen. Paul, why don't you
presumably,
go?
if it's sort of, I mean, if that category and the category of the Chole are like adjacent to each other, presumably either one informs the other, or there's some contrast being drawn.
Well, so what's the contrast? That's what I'm pointing out. So what's the contrast?
That there is a much lower, well, that the measure is different, and
That the measure for what is different? What do you mean?
The measure of food that we give them, the measure of food that we give to the ubara and the chole are different, and what prompts it is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, again, because the ubara is not a sick person. She can be a perfectly healthy pregnant woman. But as a pregnant woman, she's in her own category. Paul, why don't you read Al Pi B'Kiyin?
No, I thought about something. Maybe the
go
Ubar
ahead.
does speak Hebrew. He forgets everything when he gets.
That's a Gemara and Nida. That's when they.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
אוקיי, על פי בקיאים, אם יאמרו שני רופאים שהוא מסוכן אם אינו אוכל, well, it's because of the plurals. He thinks that it has to be, that there have to be two doctors. I'm not sure that you should understand it that way.
All right, so
But
you want to
okay.
argue with Rashi.
Yes.
Okay. No, but you're right to point out that how does Rashi know that it's talking about two doctors? So you could say because it says bikiyin.
Because of the plural, bikiyin, yes.
Okay, so let's say that. Okay, let's go with Rashi. Im yamru shnei rofim shu mesukan im eino ochel. So why would we need two doctors? Well, I'm sorry. So wait 1 second. So Paul, just to give you your due, al pi bikiyin, it doesn't. You could also argue that it doesn't mean more than one doctor needs to examine this patient, but it means that we go to experts.
Yeah.
In general, right? We go to people who are baki, because if it had said machilino to al pi baki, then I might think that I have to go to a particular expert, but bikin means I can go generally
to any doctor.
Any doctor.
Yeah,
right?
That could be yes, what I mean.
All right, but in that it says two, so now that seems to be a requirement. according to Rashi, you would say it seems like it's saying that if a person is sick on Yom Kippur and either a person is sick on Yom Kippur, then we consult doctors. We have to consult at least two doctors. And those doctors are going to determine if this person should eat, how much they should eat, what they should eat. Those are the things that they have bikiyut for. But if there are no doctors, right, in ein sham bikiyin, because it also goes in ein sham baki, like afilu ein baki achad, but in ein sham bikiyin. So now I could say, according to Rashi, maybe that means if there aren't two doctors,
Yes, if there's only one doctor, it's not enough according to Rashi.
then so I could say that maybe that's exactly what Rashi means, that if there aren't two doctors there, then it's just this choleh and a doctor. In which case, machilino to al pi atzmo, then we go after him. Then we use his opinion, and we don't. If the doctor, maybe the doctor says he doesn't need to eat, but since there's only one doctor and the choleh says I need to eat, then we go after him. This question of how many experts we need is the question that the Gemara is going to deal with. So we'll leave that for now. Okay, but this is basically the Mishnah. And now we're back to the Gemara. So the Gemara starts off with Tanu Rabbanan. Okay, so Paul, you can continue reading. Tanu Rabbanan.
וברה שהריחה בשר קודש? בשר שמותר לאכול.
No, Basar Kodesh. We'll explain in a minute.
או בשר חזיר.
תוכבין לה.
כוש. ברוטב. ומניחין לה על פיה.
Okay.
אם נתיישבה דעתה, מוטב, ואם לאו, מאכילים אותה רוטף עצמה. ואם נתיישבה דעתה, מוטב, ואם לאו, מאכילים אותה שומן עצמו. שאין לך דבר שעומד בפני פיקוח נפש, חוץ מעבודה זרה וגילוי עריות ושפיכות דמים. Yes, you know that.
Well, this is one of the places we know it from.
It comes from here? It comes from here? No, but it's also probably in other places, no?
It's in other places, but this is one of the sources.
Oh, okay.
We learned the Mishnah with the whole source of the term Pikuach Nefesh comes from a Mishnah here in this parak. Okay. So we'll get back to that. Okay, so let's go back. So what does this mean? Ubarashi richa, Paul, what does it mean? Aburashi richa basar kodesh basar chazir.
If she is Jewish, why should she smell
well,
basar
if she's
chazir?
Not,
she doesn't know what it is, so I don't understand.
You're just altogether too from. Lo mishaneh. Maybe she's never smelled it before, but now. But what happened? If a pregnant woman. What's basar kodesh?
Kasher,
what's basar?
Maybe? No, I don't know.
No. What's basar kodesh? Anybody? It could be korbanot. It could be it could be shlamim. Korban shlamim is mutar to, to any Jew to eat. Any Jew can eat from basar shlamim, but it's kodshim. It's still kodesh. Or uh, maybe she's a kohenet, and she smells the basar chatat that actually chatat is only for schlarim, but for kachim that are given to the kohanim that women can eat.
Why
So
should meat coming from a korban have a different smell than any meat?
It doesn't say that it has a different smell, but what's the point? Why is the Braita talking about basar kodesh or basar chazir? Why doesn't it just say basar?
I mean, Basar Kodesh is something that she would perhaps be likely to smell on Yom Kippur. And Basar Chazir also might be something that she'd be likely to smell because, a non-Jew may be cooking in the vicinity.
Okay, I don't know if it has to do with likeliness, although it's interesting you say about basar kodesh because, okay, maybe she's maybe she's in the Ezrat Nashim of the Beit HaMikdash, and she smells the korbanot. But what's distinct about basar kodesh and basar chazir? They seem to be on opposite ends of the pole, but what's distinct about them?
They're
That would be
they're both forbidden.
they're both forbidden. In other words, I gave the example of shlamim, but what if it's basar kodesh that she's not allowed to? What if she smells basar kodesh that she's not allowed to eat, just like she's not allowed to eat basar chazir? So the Braita, as it were, is jumping to a case where she smells something that's asur to eat on any day, not just Yom Kippur. But these are the particular meats that she now smells on Yom Kippur.
Actually, we know in this particular instant that she's smelling it on Yom Kippur?
Well, if she's not smelling it on Yom Kippur, then what? You're right. You're right to bring it up, but we're assuming that this is on Yom Kippur. Why? How could it make sense if it's not Yom Kippur? Well, you know what?
That's the context. Yom Kippur is the context.
That's the context. When we learned the Mishnah, when it said Ubara Shehiricha, what was our assumption? When did she smell this?
On Yom Kippur.
On Yom Kippur. We're in the 8th chapter of Yoma. We're talking about eating on Yom Kippur. So Ubara Shehiricha. So the Braita has the same language. Ubara Shehiricha. If she's but Michael brings up a good point because why?
What I'm suggesting, I'm sort of maybe it's reasoning by analogy that just as any food is forbidden on Yom Kippur, these foods are forbidden at any time. And so there's a general rule being extrapolated from the case in Yom Kippur. This is basically it's about forbidden foods.
Okay, so you could make the argument that the Braita, which doesn't specify Yom Kippur, so you could say, okay, look, the Mishnah didn't specify Yom Kippur, but we're learning the Mishnah in Masechet Yoma. We're learning it in the context of the Isurim of Yom Kippurim. The Braita maybe is not on Yom Kippur. In other words, that a woman who smells this food, a pregnant woman who smells this food, maybe it doesn't matter if it's Yom Kippur or not, right? That's Michael Werner's point, and it's a completely valid point that this Braita doesn't necessarily have to refer to Yom Kippur, because just like she's not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, these are things that she's not allowed to eat anytime. But nonetheless, we're worried that once she has smelled these things and she becomes unsettled, now we're worried that she and her fetus are in danger. So then what's the procedure? So chavin la kush berotev.
What is kush?
Kush is like a makel, like a stick. It could also be like a spoon. I mean, it's not. It doesn't mean a spoon. A kush means like a makel, means like a stick. It means you take a stick and you stick it into rotev. You stick it into the gravy, right? So when you cook meat, there's rotev. There's some kind of juice. Not necessarily that you add it. It's just from the cooking process.
But
There's
which rotev?
rotev.
רוטב בשר קודש או בשר חזיר, או רוטב
Yes, yes, yes.
ובשר כשר?
So it's rotev from that basar. That's the assumption. So chavin la kush berotev. In other words, the rotev of what? Of the basar kodesh. Just I'll show you quickly.
By the way, if she is a bat kohen and and the thing is, she is allowed to eat basar kodesh.
Yeah, so that's why I say I kind of take that back. I think that here, in other words, here presumably the problem is that the basar kodesh and the basar chazir are things that she's otherwise not allowed to eat. Here, I'll just show you something quickly. Oh, that's not what I want. Sorry, just a second. Oof.
Of course, at the time of the Gemara, there wasn't any more basar kodesh, but you can.
By the time of the Gemara, there wasn't, although there were people who still ate their food with taharat kodshim. But that's okay. That's a separate issue. Just a second. Let me share a screen with you. I just want to show you this mission. There's a mission including this series of things appears in other places, but this is one of them. Where it says Ha'or v'harotev v'kippah v'ha'alal v'atzamot v'gidin v'karnaim v'atlapayim mitztarfin l'tamei tumat ochelin avalo tumat nevelot. So I'm not going to go through and explain the whole Mishnah, but what it's saying is that this is also talking about when you're cooking meat or you're cooking an animal, right? Maybe you're roasting the whole animal. So it's saying that these parts of the animal are all mitzaref utamei tumat ochlin. So we learned in our sugya that the shear for tumat ochlin is kibetza. That's the shear for tumat ochlin. That is, if you have a kibetza of food, that's enough for it to be tamei and to be that it's mekabel tuma. But so it's just saying that all these things. So these all have a din of tumat ochlin. And I'm just pointing out that one of them is the harotev. So the rotev, it means, like I said when we were learning just a moment ago, the rotev in that context of basar is the rotev. It's the juice or the liquid that comes when you cook the meat. It's that rotev. It's not something. It's not barbecue sauce that you put on top. It's part of the meat. That's all I wanted to point out. That just so you know that
And
I
you are
wasn't.
allowed to eat a beitza of this rotev, even if it's treifel?
No, you're not allowed
No.
to eat it, but we're gonna leave that. If it's treif, you're not allowed to eat it at all. But
Yeah.
here, so what's our what's
I
the
was
Breita
just
here?
wondering because
What's our Breita here talking about? So we have this pregnant woman who smelled basar kodesh or basar chazir. So what's our procedure? So what are we worried about? She smelled food. So if it was Yom Kippur, it just says machilino ta'ad shetashiv nafsha. If she smelled the food and we added in based on the conclusion that she becomes agitated and she has a strong desire to eat in order to settle down. So here also, barashi richa basar kodesh basar chazir. So it doesn't say that we feed her basar kodesh or basar chazir. What does it say? Tochavin la kush berotiv v'nichin la alpia. What does that mean?
We take it. We
you're
take
stuck,
it.
you're stuck in something.
We dip the stick in the gravy and we bring her the stick.
And what do we do with the stick?
Presumably she
You
tastes.
push it into her mouth.
She takes the rotet from the stick, or she chews on the stick. I mean, it's something.
What it? Wait. You're saying a lot more than it says. Umenichin la al piha. What does that mean?
You just place it on her mouth and let
We
her.
place it on her mouth. You're already going like she can stick it in her mouth and she can chew. No, it just says we put it on her mouth. You take this stick, you put it here. You put it on her mouth. Im
The
nityashva
hope is to push
da'ata.
it inside, no?
No, but tochavin la
Today it's like this.
No. But where's the what's the reference here? Tochavin la kush berotev. We stick the kush in. The tochavin is into the rotev.
Into the rotev. Okay.
Tochavin la kush berotev. With the tochavin also it means to stick in. We stick it into the rotev, but then we take the stick uminichin la alpia. But then we put it on her mouth. Im nityashva da'ata mutav. So what does that mean?
Well, if she's satisfied, that's okay. Mutav. It's better this way.
Okay. In other words, if she's satisfied, in other words, if her soul is put to rest, right? Then mutav, then good. In other words, what does it mean good? That's all you do. And you don't do anymore. So what have we thereby done? So we're preventing her from having to we're preventing her from an isur.
Because she
right?
doesn't eat. It's only on her lips. Yes,
It's only
not,
on her lips.
It doesn't
The
go
im-
into the palate or okay.
Okay, im nityashva data muta be'im lav, and if not what?
If לא נתיישבה, אם לא נתיישבה,
Im lo nityashva data, then what?
then you really give מאכלים, you give her the rotev to eat.
Right? You give her the actual rotev to eat. Then you give her the actual rotev. Now, remember, there's a difference between the basar and the rotev. So the rotev is like a step removed from the actual basar, because it's not the actual basar. It has a din of ochlin, but it's not the basar itself. So if you touch the rotev to her mouth and she says that, that she feels better, so then fine, you stop. But if not, then we let her have the rotev. We give her the rotev to eat. V'im nityashva da'ata mutav. And if that's enough to put her at ease, then good. V'im lav. And if not, what? If not,
Well, give her to eat the shuman, the fat. Or is
Okay,
shuman here, the meat itself? I don't know.
it's the fat. It
It's
means
the
the
fat.
fat.
It's which is also
Machilin ota.
among the things which were, I don't remember, in the list you
Well,
brought.
no, I didn't bring that, but the fat it would be included as part of the basar because
Okay.
it's intermingled. Machilin ota shuman atzmo. Then we give her the actual fat. She'en lecha davar shomed bifnei pikuach nefesh. Right? Chutz me'avodah zara v'gilui arayot u'shfichut damim. So, what does this tell us about feeding a pregnant woman? What does this tell us? That if a pregnant woman smells food, then what?
Well, in the extreme case, you could even give her to eat something which is treifa.
But yeah, right. So in the extreme case, you could give her something to eat that's treif. But what does it tell us that you should do before?
Yeah, you should try to put it on the lips, or if not, only the rotev. In the extreme case, the meat itself, or the shuman.
Okay, so it's telling us. So from the Mishnah, we talked about ubrashe richa. So what did we learn? What was the din in the Mishnah? Rashi Richa. What's the din in the Mishnah?
Well, the Mishnah didn't speak about treif food.
It didn't, but it just
No.
the implication was that we added in Ubrashi Richa. We said Ubrashi Richa Ochel, right? That she smelled food. And then what does the Mishnah say right away? Machilinota. We feed her. What do we get from the Braita? That you don't necessarily feed her right away.
No.
That
Okay.
rather
you feed her
go through
even treif food.
even tray food.
Yes.
So
not immediately, but in the extreme case.
in the extreme case, so the point is that in the case of the pregnant woman, where you see also the way the Rashi phrased it in his Perush in the Mishnah, she has this ta'ava, right? She has this desire that's been provoked by the smell. So what we want to do is we want to allay her. We want to, put her to rest in some way to get her to be not agitated. And so what we do is the Braita says you don't feed her right away because there are things that you can do beforehand that might also accomplish the Yishuv Hadat that she's seeking. Maybe it's enough just to let her, to take the stick and put it on her lips. And maybe that's not enough. Maybe she can lick that. And if that's not enough, then it means that she really needs to eat it. So we let her eat it. We give it to her to eat. The only Rashi here is defining what a kush is. So, so here, Michael Werner, you can read kush.
Pelech תוכבים לכוש ברוטב של אותו הבשר ומוצצתו.
Motzatzto. So pelech, does anybody know what a pelech is?
No.
Isn't it like a twig?
Well, a pelech is a spindle.
What?
It was used for spinning.
Ken.
That's a pelech. So Rashi's just describing what a kush is. It's a kind of a stick. He says pelech. He means it's like a pelech. It's like the stick that you would have on a spindle. So you stick the kush into rotev of that. And Rashi makes it clear, not to any rotev, rotov sheloto basar. You stick it into the rotev of that meat that she's smelling. And Rashi says, umotzatzto, and then she sucks it. So it's not clear to me, does Rashi mean umotzatzto, is that minichin la'alpia? Is he explaining minichin la'alpia? Or is he saying motzatzto is when you're saying machilin ota rotevatzlo? So it could be the Rashi means, not like I insisted, because it says menichin la'alpia. Rashi maybe understands menichin la'alpia so that she can suck on it. So you haven't actually put it all the way in her mouth, but she'll suck on it. It'll go into her mouth like that. All right, we don't have to get into the precise
Sure.
details, but we still understand that this is an idea that the ubra shehiricha, something that's asur, that we give it to her in stages to try to prevent her from eating something that's asur.
Shel,
Yeah.
the situation doesn't make sense. You are on Yom Kippur. The pregnant woman feels that she wants to eat chazir. Now you have to go to the butcher, or you have to buy it.
No, she
But
doesn't. It's not. No, but it's there.
How can you do it? And then you have no.
Rega. First of all, let's
how do you cook
say.
it? In which
Wait a
second. Or in halavi? I don't understand.
Okay. Wait a second. You're creating a situation that the Bright is not talking about. This is a woman who smelled basar. The basar is there. Ubra shei. It doesn't say.
How can it be?
Ubra. It doesn't say.
No. She imagined it's to smell
No,
it.
that's what
It's
you're saying. But
imagination.
that's not what the Bright is saying. The Bright is saying that she smelled this basar. The Bright, that's what it says. Ubra shehi richa basar kodesh basar chazir. The basar is there, and she smells it, and this is what provokes her ta'ava. Your question is, what if she didn't smell anything, and she just got an urge for basar chazir? It's a legitimate question, but that's not what the Bright is specifically talking about. But if you want to know how you would do it, you do it however you do it. Certainly, and the davoneno here in Israel, you could also get basar chazir. It's not like it's impossible to get.
No, okay, but you have to buy it. You have to cook it.
Okay, so I'm saying, okay, but here in the case that the Bright is talking about, she smelled this food. It means the food is there. It's been cooked, and she's smelling it. That's what it's talking about. Okay, so we're going to stop here. The next part of the Gemara, which is a Gemara that appears in other places, it's going to now go through and tell us about Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayot, and Shfichut Tanim. It's going to give us the sources for why these things are not omed bifnei pikuach nefesh. Right? The Bright ended up by saying she'en lecha davar she'omed bifnei pikuach nefesh, except for Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayot, and Shfichut Tanim. And then the next thing it's going to say is Avodah Zarah minalan. Where do I know Avodah Zarah from? In other words, where do I know that Avodah Zarah is something that is not omed bifnei pikuach nefesh? And then it'll go through. It'll go through Avodah Zarah. It'll go through Gilui Arayot and Shfichut Damim. And once it goes through all those things, it's going to come back to the main subject of our Mishnah. But next week we'll go through this part here. You're all welcome to look at it yourself. Or on Pei Bet Amud Aleph. You can go ahead and you can, look ahead and see what it says. But I think that's it for tonight. Any last questions or comments? Okay. So since none of us are pregnant or ever will be pregnant, this doesn't apply to you. So just remember that.
All right,
Bye,
thank you.
Ato.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.